Board of Selectmen's workshop to order. The town of Acton, in response to the COVID-19 coronavirus, is currently following the guidance from the Acton Board of Health, the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and the CDC regarding the virus and steps communities can take to prevent the spread. The town hall is closed to the public. To participate remotely from a computer, please click on the link below to join the public meeting. That is webinar number https://zoom.us/j/5039-18785, or from a telephone dial 646-876-9923 and enter webinar ID 503-918-785. We have one item on for the workshop. It's to discuss the structure, composition, and charge to the Equity and Diversity Advisory Commission. Now, similar to our goal-setting workshop of several weeks ago, this is an opportunity for the board to think aloud and have a conversation. The meeting is available online and on ActonTV. There will be no public participation. Approximately 20 online submission comments were received. They are all available on DocuShare with the names and addresses of the individuals deleted. So with that, I'd like to ask David if he would open with any further comments to the draft charge that we received from him the other day, and I assume we all have read through carefully. So David?
Yeah, so I don't have any comments other than the charge itself. I mean, I modeled this charge on the town meeting improvements committee charge, actually, because it's a similar. It's similar in that the proposed charge here is a commission of a duration to perform a specific task, not an ongoing committee, and so it's modeled after that. I can read it if you would like.
All right, if you would.
Okay, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission is charged with assessing diversity, equity, and inclusion in Acton and suggesting ways to improve any problems found. The DEIC shall consist of between 7 and 9 members. At least 70% of the members must be Black or immigrant residents. 1 or more members should be a current student at ABRHS at the time that they become a member. The commission will be chaired by a member of the Board of Selectmen. The commission's tasks are targeted at increasing communication with underrepresented racial, ethnic, and religious groups. The tasks enumerated here are facilitate discussion among town residents about issues of diversity and equity, gather firsthand experiences in Acton from underrepresented racial, ethnic, and religious groups, hear from groups operating in town that are targeted at related issues, brainstorm possible actions that can be taken to address any problems found, produce a report for the Board of Selectmen documenting the state of diversity, equity, and inclusion in town, and make appropriate recommendations to address any problems found. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission shall file its report with the Board of Selectmen within a year of its first meeting. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission shall sunset 1 meeting after the Board of Selectmen accepts the report.
Okay, so just comments before we dive in. Comments generally from board members. Jim?
Well, first of all, I thought this was a really great start. Can I be heard?
Please, yes.
Okay, great. I thought this was a really great start. I thought we should expect that because this is such a big topic, we would just have to start off in an approximately good direction and then improve from there. and I think this is a fine start. I did have some questions for the board to consider, maybe from David as well, to hear his thoughts about. One was, or should we? You want
Yeah,
questions?
why don't we, if you just comment generally,
Okay.
as you did, and then we can go into the questions.
Great. Then I'm all set for now.
Okay, Dean?
Yeah, I also agree. It's a great start. I've got one or two questions, as Jim does, I'm sure, about the makeup of the board. I particularly like the fact that it's very focused and of limited duration. I mean, I think it's entirely possible that coming out of this, there might be a decision to create some kind of a standing board. And that's something we can discuss, and we'll see what gets recommended. But I like the idea that, you know, you get in and you get out, and hopefully a year gives them enough time to fully surface these ideas. And I'll hold the rest of my comments until we get into the real nitty gritty of it.
Okay, Joan? Thank you. Joan?
No, I think it's a great start. My question is about the makeup of the board. So
Sure. Okay, I would concur with my colleagues. It was thoughtfully done. It was concise and a great beginning. So maybe we should start at the top and talk about the composition of the commission. David, what did you specifically have in mind for selecting members?
I mean, how would members be selected?
Yeah.
Yeah, so our usual practice is that the liaison to.
We lost. No.
Used.
We lost you.
You lost me or the picture?
We lost both of you. We have you back, not your picture.
Okay, I will reshare that then.
Okay.
So so I mean, our usual practice is that the liaison approves members to any board or committee that they're liaison to. And there are people who I would reach out to for suggestions for members. I haven't done that yet, obviously, because the commission is not yet charged. But there are people I would reach out to, people I know, for either for themselves or for suggestions for people to include.
Dean?
Yeah, along those lines, I think it would be very helpful to widely publicize this in the website, and however else we can do it to encourage people to submit an application. So that I've received some input from people that wanted to make sure that we get a broad range of views, not only from certainly from people of color, but also people having different political points of view. So I think it's important that we really open this up for a few weeks or a month or something to try to solicit members from the public that we might not have heard from yet. The other question that I've got that I'll get into is the definition of what an immigrant resident is. Does it have to be somebody who,
I would
here recently, or first generation, second generation? We all came from someplace else.
Right. My intention here was just.
You didn't, Dean.
My intention is just to have the word be immigrant. In other words, someone who is not born in the United States.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not first generation, second generation. According to the census, I think we have about 20 indigenous people in town. So that they would be the only ones who maybe didn't come from somewhere else originally. So anyway, so I meant immigrant literally.
Okay, and just as a follow-up on that, I know there has been some discussion in the past about challenges that the Jewish community have faced moving into town and still face from time to time. And I don't think, other than, some recent Russian immigrants, I don't think many members of the Jewish community would actually fit under that definition of immigrant. So I want to make sure that maybe in the other 30%, we make sure that we reach out to that community as well.
May I just respond?
Sure, please.
Yeah. So, although there's the composition of, I proposed this particular composition for this committee, it doesn't mean that they can't hear from anybody else. I mean, specifically in this charter, it says, it identifies religious groups that are underrepresented, and might be had experiences here that they want to have the commission aware of. I mean, I think it's the same as with us, right? I mean, we can take an issue from a Black resident or a Jewish resident or a Muslim resident or anybody else, and I in particular am not Muslim, Black, or Jewish, right? So, and we hear those, right? So in the same way, this committee does not need to have a Jewish member. We don't. If we tried to represent everybody, it would be impossible, right? To try to represent every religion. I mean, this would be a 30-member commission, maybe more, right? And so I would say that the point of this time in our country is for the people that I've mentioned here, and also I think it's quite important that people who might want to approach this committee see a membership that they're comfortable talking to. The Jewish community is already, for example, involved politically in town in a number of different areas. They're not really underrepresented. I mean, if there's someone who has an experience, that's completely fine, and that would be open to hear. But this is more my vision for this commission is to hear from people who are underrepresented, not necessarily, try to include, Irish Catholics and Italians and Polish people, and every group.
Sure. Jim?
Sorry, my computer went out for a tiny bit there, but we're now hearing from each other about questions.
Well, what we're talking about is the composition of the.
Okay, great. I thought it was both bold and appropriate to have to make an explicit call about having the committee be primarily Black and immigrant residents. So I'm comfortable with the way it's written. The having a member who's a current student at ABRHS led me to think about the scope of the commission, which we could talk about separately, and whether we are going to be including the schools or everything that happens in town, whether we're focusing on municipal operations. So that's a separate question that I'd love to be talking about. But in terms of the composition, I think it's great. I think we have an opportunity to model what inclusion is about. As Dean mentioned, reaching out to lots of existing groups to look for members seems like a great, a good way for us to start with this.
Joan?
Yeah, it says 7 or 9 members. If we had 7 and 70% would be Black, that doesn't leave much room for anyone else. And I'm a little concerned about the interaction on the committee.
So if I may respond.
Please.
So again, this board is 100% white. And would anybody on this board say that we cannot deal with issues that are brought to us from immigrants or Black people or somebody else, right? I think that at this time, this commission should be overwhelmingly composed of Black and immigrant residents. And I think it's not the time to try to water this down with lots of other people.
Are there any comments on that point, Jim?
Yeah, just to make sure I heard both of what you said. Joan, the requirement isn't that 70% of the members are Black, but that 70% of the members are Black or immigrants. So that's more inclusive than trying to find somewhere between. I did the numbers here. Somewhere between 4.9 and 6.3 Black people. Well, I think we can do this.
So would you look to a commission of 9 members then?
Well, I did. I'd probably aim for 9, but sometimes it's difficult to get exact numbers. People can leave, or I might actually initially aim for the middle of that, 8, and then if it becomes obvious that we want to add someone, I can add someone. That kind of thing. So and also if it goes below 8, then we're still within the terms of the charge.
Yeah, like as you modeled the charge after the Town Meeting Improvements Committee, which I was the liaison and put together, I found there, and I think you will find here as well, the committee will be oversubscribed. So, I would go, begin with the higher number.
But by oversubscribed, you mean there are lots of applicants?
Yes, yeah. You'll have lots of you'll have people who want to do it.
Sure.
Want to be part of it.
Okay.
Would we be comfortable with a 70%, 30% membership split?
Well, that gets very exact. I would not want to be so restricted, right? So a member of the Board of Selectmen is already on, right? So that's one white person already there. So, and I don't know the people who are going to apply, right? And I think that if a white person applies, they need to have a particular point of view relative to this commission, right? They need to have an experience there or some other point of view relative to this issue.
Okay. Well, let me ask this. Would there be a sense that one of the members of the commission be an Acton police officer?
I would rather take testimony from the Acton police officers rather than have members of the commission. I think that it's important to have this commission be approachable by anybody. Even someone who may be fearful of the police. So I would not want to do that. That would be my preference.
Any other comments on having a police officer as a member of the commission?
Oh, but I think we have other groups in the community who've been here a while, who may have experience in the community that would be pertinent to the community.
But I would say that those people do not have issues of inclusion and equity, right? I certainly have, nobody on this board has any issues of inclusion and equity, right? This commission is about inclusion and equity and diversity, right? But
we have a diverse population in Acton.
Well, we have about a third of the people who are Black or immigrants, mostly immigrants.
Dean?
I understand what David's saying about, including a police officer on the committee. I think it would be, I hope that we make sure that in the research that this commission is going to do, that they reach out to certainly the police, fire department, all other groups and agencies, and try to get their input. I'm a little concerned that, but I understand David's comment that people might be afraid of our police. I mean, I think people are afraid of the Acton police have been spending way too much time watching the mainstream media on TV. I think, it's that whole fear, in my opinion, is completely overblown and is not accurate at all. I hope that coming out of this, people will understand that, members of the commission and members of the community that we're supposed to be serving here. And, just generally, I hope that what comes out of this is not just a long litany of complaints that people are dreaming up. If people have issues, I think they should be documented. I think they should be accurate. I think we should know exactly what people are facing here in Acton or have faced in Acton, and not just stuff that they're pulling off the TV set.
May I respond?
Yes.
So let me just relate a little something to you and to all of you. So first of all, I tout the Acton Police Department. I think we have a great police department, and I tout several things about our police department as examples. That our police department has been involved in de-escalating issues of domestic violence for decades, and connecting with a domestic violence assistance group, and that's been going on for a long time. Our police department has been involved with, for a long time, again, more than a decade, a restorative justice program, to keep people, to solve problems ahead of people going into the legal system. An excellent program, and our police department was involved very early on. And thirdly, the fact that
We lost you, David.
Am I back now?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So did you hear about my comment about the restorative justice program?
Yes, we did.
Okay, great. Okay, and the third thing is the fact that in their report last year, a point of pride for our police department was the fact that they hadn't used their weapons at all in the preceding year, not even their tasers, right? So we have an excellent police department, right? And there's no doubt. However, I've also met with a group of Black students from school, and the Black students there feel that they get more scrutiny than the white students. And they feel that the areas of the school where the Black students hang out is watched more. They also feel that that when it comes to a white student and a Black student get caught for the same offense, that there is that the black students are dealt with more punitively, like they're suspended or whatever, and the white student, there's more of an investment in their success, like they try to figure out ways that the problem's not going to happen again and that kind of thing. So my goal for the commission is to be able to bridge issues like that, right? So we want to be able to figure out why those things are happening, and address them, right? I will say that the students called on one particular officer as being wonderful, right? But the rest of the officers, they said, were not. They gave them more quote attention than white students. So I think so. My point of view is that I'm not trying. This is just my personal opinion. That I'm looking for improvements that we can make, not criticizing people or trying to take down a department or anything like that, right? And I think we can, any of us can make improvements at any time. And so, we just need to learn about them and figure them out and that kind of thing. And those are my goals here.
There was in one of the comments, this was comment number 63 that came into us. And there was something that really struck me. And if you didn't have a chance, it came in last night. I just wanted to read it back to you and to the people who were watching. It was, don't jump to conclusions about what problems exist in Acton. Don't pigeonhole and assume that the Acton Police Department is bad, that all Black, brown, and other people of color in Acton are victims of racially discriminatory treatment in Acton, that all Black, brown, and other people of color want help at all or want the same help, listen and learn. So that struck me, and I think that's one of our starting points.
I agree with that statement, except that the middle part of that said, don't assume that Black people are, I forget the exact wording, that are all victims of racial bias or whatever. But that's true. All Black people are victims of racial bias. It's something that Black folks have to deal with every day. And it's not well understood by white folks.
Well, the person who wrote the comment is an Asian American and person of color.
Sure, that's fine. Everybody can have their point of view, and that's completely fine. And I'm not dismissing anybody's point of view. But we need to have a variety of people. This commission here from a variety of people. Anybody who wants to present a point of view, especially I think about a firsthand experience, should be able to present that.
As well as people who might wish to, respond and, question and, lend another, perspective as well.
Absolutely. I would not cut off anybody's point of view except for, obvious hate and bigotry, right? Other than that, anybody can have an opinion that they want. And that's complete. And this commission could hear from everybody.
Okay, so in terms of 7 to 9 members, how do we determine how many members the commission will be?
Well, I think we should state that here, right? If you don't like 7 to 9, we should change that.
Well, should we set a number? I mean, I'm comfortable with your range. I would just do it at the upper end of the range because I think you're going to have a lot of people who are interested.
So I would like to have. If you don't want a range, we can not have a range. I can just say 9, for example. But we could also say 9 to 11. Or something because again, if we get into this and someone suggests that, you know, there's this other person who would be an excellent member, you know, it'd be nice to have the headroom, if you will, to add them. And also we want to, you know, be within the terms of the charge if someone leaves the group until such time as we get another person, right? So I like the range, but if you guys want to just say 9, I can do that. What's the-
Comments? Dean?
My concern
Yeah.
is
John?
diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we're saying that the majority of the people on this commission will be Black.
Or immigrants.
And there are other populations in town that may have experienced some of these issues.
And this commission can hear from those people. That's not a problem.
But they can't be members.
They can be members, right? You know, but we're not going to be able to represent, you know, all ethnic backgrounds individually, and nor is that necessary. And again, in the same way that, you know, Joan, do you think that you could not hear from a Black person at a Board of Selectmen meeting? I mean, you're not Black, right? But you hit the right. So obviously, you do hear from Black and immigrant people. People come to the board with things all the time, and in the same way, this commission can hear from people who are not Black or immigrants, right? If a Muslim American or a Jewish American wants to come to this group with some experience, that's completely fine. You know, we've had swastikas on, you know, more than once at on the school property, right? So, you know, that can be an issue.
Dean?
Yeah, I favor your suggestion to make this a little bigger. I mean, you don't want to have a huge and unwieldy commission, but I think I would favor the 9 to 11. And that does, by bringing that number up a little bit, it does give us a little more opportunity to have probably an additional member that will not be Black or immigrant. So I think it might open it up a little bit.
Okay.
Jim?
Sometimes with committees where we want to be sure to have a full complement of people and not have a big delay if someone leaves the committee, we have associate members. So I wonder if it might make sense to have a committee that's up to 9 full members and up to 2 associates.
Yeah, what I did with the Town Meeting Improvement Committee, it was filled with 9 was the number, and then when more people showed an interest, I added with the board's approval 2 associate members, and then one of those associate members filled a spot of a regular member when that person left the group.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, would you want to think about what our suggestion was between 9 and 11 members, or do you want to just see? Well, people may leave. You can either do it one of 2 ways. You know, 9 to 11 members, and see what comes. You know, how many people are actually interested in it, and then create the alternate members, or just create the alternate members at the outset. Gene?
Yeah, I think, you know, so we don't have to revisit this later on. I would think, you know, go with the 9 to 11 members and then also add a line to and up to 2 associates. And that way you've got, you know, a feeder system if people drop off, and we still keep a really robust representation on the commission.
Jim?
I'm fine with that.
Joan?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, that's good. Now, how would you want to go about filling the commission? Shall we have people submit applications to David. And well, there's probably a threshold question. I think, David, you should probably reach out to Greg Hutchins, who's chairman of the Volunteer Coordinating Committee, as I did with the Town Meeting Improvement Committee, since it was a committee of limited duration. That was for, I think, about 6 or 9 months. And said, is it okay that the select board, pick the members? And he was comfortable with that because it was a limited duration committee. It wasn't a permanent committee.
Right. I was assuming that, John, based on comments that you made during the goal setting, that, because during the goal setting, you explicitly said that this commission should not go through the VCC.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm very, very happy, as people in this discussion today made comments saying that we should advertise this, and I think that's excellent ideas. I'd love to see as many people as possible interested. And there are people that I'm going to reach out to that I have not reached out to yet. That people I know that either themselves or will know people that I don't know that who may be interested in being members.
Okay, so so everybody would submit a letter of interest, or
yes, and a letter of interest, and I would love, we can put on the website letter of interest, and a little bit of their background as to why,
to the group. Does that make sense, Jim?
I guess I'm a little confused about why we would keep the VCC out of this. They have a lot of experience in talking to candidates. They actually have immigrant representation on the VCC. It's a process that's well understood. So I'm just confused about that.
Well, I would look at the VCC as sort of when we have permanent committees of long-standing, as distinguished from committees like the Town Meeting Improvements Committee or the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, which are term limited to under a year.
Okay. This wasn't a strong feeling one way or the other. It was just
okay
to me that we would invent a new process. But what I'm hearing you say is that we did use this process successfully for the Town Meeting Improvement Committee.
And it's always been done with when the selectmen appoint a search committee or a screening committee for town manager.
Yeah.
Any kind of task force, I think we do it this way.
Okay, great.
Dean or Joan?
Yeah, I agree with you, John. I'm thinking of the examples of when we used to do building committees, like for the library or the public safety building. We didn't go through VCC. We kind of targeted it, and the Board of Selectmen appointed. I think the VCC has got a pretty tough job anyway, trying to fill positions. So I think this process will work fine.
Okay. So, David, how would you suggest advertising and a time frame for submitting letters of interest?
I think the advertising, if we put it on the town website would be good. Also, I will be, after the commission is charged, I'll be reaching out to people again for suggestions, not necessarily them, although they might be a possibility. These individuals might be possibilities themselves, but suggestions from them. And there might be some people who might need some encouragement to be able to want to invest the time, but maybe they would be excellent members. So anyway, I intend to kind of advertise it that way. Happy to have it advertised any way that the board thinks is appropriate.
Jim.
When I think about advertising, I'm back to my questions about scope. Can I ask these questions again?
Please.
Okay. So I can see two general ways to go about the scope of this. One is to think about the interactions that people have with the municipal operations, basically the town departments and the town committees and town staff. The advantage of thinking of it that way is that that's stuff over which we have control and some influence. On the other hand, it might overlap with efforts that the town manager is already making. That later on, I'd like to hear from him about those again. And of course, the other disadvantage is that there's probably important areas where there are issues that are not directly municipal, mostly the schools, but also real estate agents, other people that sort of gateway people moving into town. There's businesses, and it would be great on the one hand to hear, to understand the range of all these problems, and I think it might help people in coming forward if we don't have to say, oh, I'm sorry, that's not specifically about municipal operations, so we don't really want to hear from you. But on the other hand, when it gets to the point of recommendations and next steps, we may end up wanting to focus because this is such a huge area of consideration.
Okay, would your comments be better made in the second part where David's draft chart talks about the commission's tasks?
I think so. The only reason I'm raising it here is because of the question of advertising, how we're going to describe it. Specifically, do we reach out to the schools? To me, I guess the school. Let's talk about the school question most importantly, because that also goes to the composition of the committee. I'm wondering what people's thoughts are about the pros and cons of including more or less in our scope.
David?
So my feeling is that the schools are an experience in town, right? And that, experiences of the students are certainly appropriate. I think it would be great, and I would expect that the report at the end would be shared with the school committee and the superintendent. We obviously have no direct influence over the school committee and the school district, but the report I would think would be of interest to everyone. I mean, I know I'm interested in the scope issues that you brought up, Jim, in not only experiences with town government and experiences in the school system, but also experiences around town, right? When people come to town and look for housing, are they welcomed here? Is that all good? Or are there issues that could be addressed? Do people feel safe in all the areas of town, or do they have other interactions? I mean, there were a number of experiences that were expressed in the comments that were positive. Where people felt welcomed, and actually, there was one person I think who said she expected a problem and there wasn't a problem, right? And so. We want to hear about all those experiences, and one is just to know, I think, and then the things at the end and after the report, we can decide if there are any actions the board needs to take from its purview. But the report can, I think, be outside of just municipally relevant experiences.
Thank you.
Dean?
I think that coming out of this, the report that the commission will come out, hopefully there'll be, several different categories of recommendations. One would deal specifically with what actions could be taken by the Board of Selectmen about municipal operations. Another silo of recommendations would be specifically issues that might have been raised in regards to the schools, which are really not in our purview. They've got their own issues that are unique. They're not under our control. The schools have got more than enough on their plate right now. I still haven't seen the report they were supposed to produce in response to how they handled the Merriam School incident. That's still out there, I believe. And then I think, there's another silo of just interactions that people have seen or have felt in regard to, say, the commercial community. Are there problems with real estate agents? Are there problems with store owners and that sort of thing? Again, a lot of those things are really not under our control, or really are not under our control. But I think we can surface all that. And then from there, maybe there'll be a follow-on commission, or maybe there'll be a follow-on report. But, I don't think at this point we can really drag the schools into this. We need to move quickly on this. And with all the stuff that they're faced with right now, I wouldn't want to try to, delay this by asking for them to send people along.
John? No, I agree with Dean.
Okay, so in terms of advertising, we could put something, get an announcement then up on the website, and begin the process that way. In terms of a timeline, when would the letters of interest be due? David, what was your thinking on that?
But maybe within a month's time, or less. I certainly wouldn't want to go more than a month.
So we're at August 13th today. So let's say if we get something up early next week,
we could say by September 15th, maybe.
Yeah. So September 15th. That week, September 15th, September 17th. We're probably not going to get anything up until perhaps next Monday or Tuesday. So maybe
John, I think you had success for the Town Meeting Improvements Commission reaching out to people, right, for either asking them individually or asking, who would be appropriate, right? That was, part of the model I was thinking about.
Yeah, I think any of us should be, reaching out to people who we think might be, interesting members, but they would have to submit a letter.
Sure. Okay.
But yes, I would think, reaching out and, I don't want to use the word recruitment, but people who might be interested in serving, but we're not guaranteeing them a position on the.
Sure.
You can't do that.
Yep.
And is David the one who would accept everybody onto the committee?
Well, that would be the next step. So what we're talking about is letters of interest would be due by, do you want to say September 17th?
Sure.
Okay. Then do you want to, how do you want to go about the process of selecting the members? Do you want David to come up, take the letters of interest and recommend a membership to us? Or do you want to review, do all of us want to review the letters and then send suggestions to David and then have him come back to us with, based on our comments and his sense, a list that he would submit to us? Jim?
Just wanted to raise the flag about our sending our thoughts to David. Seems like there's a great chance for OML issues there.
Yeah.
An alternative might be to have either David work with just one of us, and perhaps the chair would be appropriate. So we have a informal sub-quorum group of people developing a recommendation, or we work this through a staff member, because then we could all send thoughts and recommendations to a staff member, and then have David work with that staff person to come back to us with a slate.
Dean or Joan with thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with Jim as far as his first option. Have David work with the chair, go over the applications. You guys come up with a slate of potential candidates. We put it on the consent agenda, and then we vote on it at one of our meetings. I think that seems to be the quickest way to do it, to get this thing turned around. Jumping back just a little bit, but it does touch on this. My presumption is that the membership will consist of people who are Acton residents.
Yes, and that's what the charge says.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Joan?
No, I agree with Dean.
All right, so David, would you be comfortable that the two of us work together and taking the people who express interest in serving and presenting to the full board a list of up to 11 members and 2 associate members?
Well, we don't do that for any other committee or commission. Why would we do that here? So in the case of the Town Improvements Commission, I don't think we voted on individuals at all. They were just
you did. I said it all out.
So why would, like every other committee, why would not the liaison just put them on the consent agenda for approval? We you know, why does this commission need more scrutiny than every other committee and commission?
I think it's a big commission.
Yes.
I'm not talking about scrutiny. You know, I'm just talking about.
Yeah,
I don't want the. I don't think we want the commission challenged that its membership was selected by one person with a particular view. And I think
so. When someone comes in, expresses interest in the Board of Health, and I ask to have them included on the consent agenda, maybe I have a particular point of view for the Board of Health, right? You know, why does this commission need more scrutiny than every other commission?
I wouldn't look at it as more scrutiny. I would look at it as, you know, what you want for this commission, you know, is community buy-in, because it deals with, you know, it's gonna be a hard discussion. It's gonna be a sensitive discussion. It's a complex discussion.
I agree with all that, but I think that this, you know, this particular commission, you know, in particular, wants to have um, people who are specifically, affected by uh, diversity, equity, and inclusivity. And I am frankly fearful that the membership of this commission would be watered down. Yeah, I want to reinforce that we are all white, right? Any actions taken by this commission have to go through the board. The commission can't do anything except write a report. And so the white folks in town get represented by us, right? And some members of the commission, but in a minority of the commission.
I take some offense at that, David, because we all were elected to this to the select board, in contested elections where anybody can run. And I think a crucial thing that we all understood when we ran is you can't come to you can't come to the board with an agenda. You have to have an open mind. Everything we do, we look to the whole. We don't look to interest group A or interest group B. I don't think that only you alone can pick the would necessarily pick the commission unless
again, we do that for every other committee. Why does this committee need more scrutiny?
Jim?
Just to find a middle path here. There's a possibility just simply having David propose a slate, just as we do with every other committee. I think that's reasonable. These slates typically get put on consent. As selectmen, we'll be seeing all the application letters. If any of us think that there is some dangerous or important flaw in the makeup of the committee, we can take it off consent and talk about it. That's the procedure we came up with when we had other situations before I was on the board with, who is appropriate for being on a committee. So I think that might be a very reasonable way to do it. Have the slate come forward. It's on consent. If we have concerns, we talk about it openly.
I'd be fine. I'd be fine with that. I think that's what we do for every other committee. I think we should do that here.
Nadine?
Yeah, I'll agree with Jim on that. The one thing that I want to clarify is that normally when we accept a recommendation from the VCC and from the liaison, we don't see the applications from alternate candidates. So I think this is a little bit different. So I think it would really be a great idea, and I agree with you, Jim, that we should be able to see the full slate of potential candidates and then see the recommendation from David. And I'd be okay with that, so that we know that if we find one particular member that we don't think is a good fit, we know we've got somebody else that we can go to. So I think that I would agree with you on that one.
John?
Yeah, would we see the letter that the person sent in?
I would say yes.
Okay. So the applicant, the people who are interested in serving, their letters would be available to all of us. And I assume then they would also be available to the public. Fair?
That would be fine too.
Okay. All right. So so let's go with the suggestion that David will recommend after sorting through the people of interest, that he would put together a recommended list, and it would it would be, presented to us at a full meeting of the board.
Great.
Okay, we're all comfortable?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so we've got the process for the number on the commission, the composition of the commission.
Can I ask one question on the composition? This charge currently states that the Board of Selectmen member would be will chair the commission. It's been suggested that the Board of Selectmen member should just be a regular member. Maybe they could be elected as chair by the commission, but I'm wondering what your guys' feeling was on that. I mean, I can see pros and cons either way.
Well, I thought that I thought it was important, very important, that the board be proactive on the commission, and taking leadership and owning the commission, in the sense that we're going to take responsibility for it. We weren't going to offload it to other people, other individuals. And so I had recommended that that it be chaired by a member of the board. And I specifically asked David, knowing his long passion on the subject of race. So I'm very comfortable with David as chair, and it shouldn't be an up for grabs position. David?
That's Dean, I think.
Dean, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree with you, John. I think that it's important to make sure that this thing moves forward, and I think the way of doing that is to have a selectman guiding the process, and the best way to do that is by chairing the committee. And I have complete confidence in David and his ability to impartially represent everybody on this board. So I would keep the charge just the way we've got it, and have David as chair.
Okay.
Any other comments?
I'm in favor of having the board with David as a member choose its own structure. But I see your points about wanting to make sure that this stays on the radar and and with good communication with the Board of Selectmen. We don't want to create an out group and an in group where we can then sort of end up ignoring the recommendations of the commission. On the other hand, I think there's a perception issue here about whether this commission that's explicitly and for important reasons 70% immigrant and Black then has a white chair. I wonder if there's a place in the middle here, perhaps with co-chairs. Maybe there's a co-chair who's part of that 70% cohort, or someone else from that cohort. I think would probably be the right way.
Well, we could leave it to the commission if they wish to elect a vice chair.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it's our responsibility to really bring the commission to fruition and to the finish line, and not something to be handed off.
Yeah, and I think I brought up this question just now just because of the questions that Jim brought up. So I actually have some mixed feelings myself, but I think I can do a good job here. I have a lot of experience facilitating meetings, and I have background in this the area of civil rights and racial justice. So I think I can do a good job, but I thought I'd ask the question.
Okay. So do you want to leave it then to the commission once they're formed, if they want to have a vice chair? David, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I'm typing. You guys can see my screen again?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Dean should go first.
Yeah. Dean?
Yeah, I was just giving it the thumbs up. I think that looks really good. And again, I just want to reiterate that I think it's important that we keep this moving ahead. And I think the way to do that is to have a member of the Board of Selectmen be the chair. Coincidentally, right now, all the members are white, but, I really get very uncomfortable with this whole racial quota thing that we're skittering around the edge of here. So I think, what we've got down there now for wording, I'm really comfortable with.
Jim?
Yeah, I'm okay with proceeding this way. I think for me, the safety valve is that if the commission itself, in its operation discovers that it would just make more sense to have a different chair, they can come back to the board and say, we need to adjust our charter.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's a fine way to start.
Okay. All right. So then let's move on to the second piece of the draft charge. The commission's tasks are targeted at increasing communication with underrepresented racial, ethnic, and religious groups. And there were 5 bullet points under that header. So are there comments or questions as to bullet points? So we're all good? Jim?
I think it might be good to explicitly add to hear from the town, departments, groups, committees, I'm not sure how to phrase it, that work directly with the public. This is, partly to hear from the police department, partly to hear from the town social worker, who has a lot of, interactions with underserved communities, et cetera. So I think that might be helpful to make explicit.
I typed a line in there. Does that?
Yeah, so that does include the police department, the fire department.
Yeah.
That's Jim, thank you. That's a very good addition. So then we're all set now on the 6 bullet points. Jim?
I think so. I'm wondering if we want to be explicit about what we're excluding here. In particular, sometimes when people talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, they're talking about LGBTQ status, disability status, gender, lots of other issues. I think what we're saying is that, we might hear about those issues, but it's not the focus of the commission. It may be okay not to say that explicitly, but I wanted at the very least, to say it out loud here to make sure we were all comfortable with that.
So we don't have, we already have explicit committees and ongoing committees in town that deal with older folks, disabled folks, that kind of thing. I don't think we have anything targeted at sexual, sexual preference or gender identity, things like that. So the first two I think are covered. I don't know if we want to add something here. But I will say I think the reason we made this goal was because of the current national recognition of issues of discrimination involving race and national origin, especially. But whatever.
We're focusing here on Black, is that right? And immigrant.
We're focusing on Black and immigrant. That's correct. Well, it says here. Where is it? It says it several times. I'm trying to find out where.
Underrepresented racial, ethnic, and religious groups?
Yes, right. So this is what it's targeted at.
Yeah.
But we're only having members who are Black.
So we're having 70% of members who are Black or immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm explicitly a member, and I'm neither of those.
Mm-hmm.
But we have other populations in town,
Yeah, and this commission can hear from them.
but they can't be members.
They can be members, but they'd be a minority.
Okay. So then moving on to the final paragraph, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission shall file its report with the Board of Selectmen within 1 year of its first meeting. The commission shall sunset one meeting after the Board of Selectmen accepts the report. I assume receives the report or
I had assumed that there would be a vote to accept the report, but
okay.
if there is not, if you just want to, I can change this to one meeting after sending the report if you wish.
Well, I think that, the board may want to discuss the recommendations with the commission at a public meeting, and then have some follow-up discussion. It may take a couple of
that was my feeling as well, that before we would accept the report, we might go back to the commission and say, you need to be more specific here in part 2, or we need more information about part 2, and ask them to continue on before we accept the report, to do a further investigation in a particular area, or we can accept it right away.
Dean?
Yeah, I agree that, there should be an opportunity for some back and forth. And so I think we should keep the commission alive so that we can do that. And I think here it's important that there's a difference between the board accepting the report and the board adopting the recommendations. I mean, we can look at it and say, okay, we accept the report. We know this was a good piece of work you put together. We understand your point of view. But a separate issue would be if we want to adopt some of the recommendations. So I'm comfortable with the idea of the wording right now that we accept the report, but that does not imply that we're going to immediately adopt the recommendations. It could be the recommendations we don't agree with. It could be that the recommendations would involve, funding and a budget cycle and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's, we've received the report, we talked about it, we've met with the commission, and now we accept that this is your work product, and thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and does that allow in your mind that we received the report, and the commission, it would still be available for board discussion with the board? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if we, to me, John, if we felt that that discussion was going to take a little time, we would just delay accepting the report, right?
Okay,
Right, so
Sure.
if we thought that we wanted just to have a presentation and then after the presentation, we accept the report, then the commission would have one more meeting and would dissolve. If we decide we get the presentation and we want more clarity or whatever issues that the board might have, we could ask them, could you do a little bit more work in this area and not accept the report yet? And maybe to do a little bit more work in this area and submit the report again in 2 months or something. So
Dean, did you have something to say?
No, I agree with that entirely.
Okay. Okay, so then with the charge that's now before us, the draft charge as edited, are we in a position now to formally adopt David's draft as the charge to the commission? Both as to composition and charge. Dean?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we accept the draft charge as edited as of today.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Jim?
Just want to acknowledge the discomfort that some of us have with the explicit 7% requirement about Black and immigrant residents. I think it's there for a good reason. And at the same time, I know it makes, there's a certain level of squirminess. And some of that is just the unusual position for us as white non-immigrants of being explicitly a minority. So I naturally that leads to some psychological discomfort because we've usually been the default. I think the other reason for discomfort is because we share a vision of a future where these kinds of explicit numbers aren't necessary, where we've done the work, where people are included. We've done the work so that people of all sorts of different groups who want to be involved can be involved, and there aren't structural or psychological or social barriers to their involvement. And I want to get to that day too. Just we're not there yet. So I think as part of the transition, I think it's wise, although discomforting, to have these kinds of limits, especially for this particular group.
Well, I think we're all accepting of it. I think the question that Joan raised is it's important that there be community buy-in to the work of the commission and the recommendations, and Joan's question was should that be a more diverse commission in terms of membership to get there. That that's a fair comment, but I think we are all comfortable with the composition of the commission as David had recommended, particularly following the discussion this morning.
I'm not comfortable with that. This is a diverse, equity, and inclusion commission, and we have a large Chinese and Indian population, and they've had experiences in town over the years. As I've been here over 50 years, and I've seen these different groups come into town and have also experienced some of the issues.
This includes the Chinese and Indian people.
within the 30%.
No, within the 70%.
Many of them are, many of our Indian and Chinese American residents
So-
are immigrants.
So it's very likely that all the people in town that we know that speak accented English are immigrants. And you know, we all know many, many of them, right? And so those people, I'm hoping, will be fully represented on this commission.
Okay, so that's you know, an important clarification, because we were, you know, I think we were linking to your bullet point to gather information from underrepresented racial, ethnic, and religious groups, whether the underrepresented, you know, what exactly did you mean by immigrant residents? Was it underrepresented immigrant residents?
No, I meant that literally by people who are not born in the United States, but that will cause those groups to be represented, right? So if you're talking the Latinx people in town, many of whom are Brazilian, you know, they amount to about well, Latinx in general amounts to almost 4% of the town's population, right? So I think those people need to be represented here.
Okay, but in your in the use of the word, you know, immigrant residents, you're talking about members of our Chinese community and our Indian community.
Absolutely, you know, any immigrant, they could be from Russia, right? Any immigrant, because you know so absolutely, yes.
Joan, does that make you more comfortable? And
Yes.
okay. Okay. So with that, are there any further comments? Okay, so David, if you call the roll on Dean's motion.
Mr. Snyder Grant,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
and Mr. Martin also votes aye, so it's unanimous.
Okay, so
Thank
David, just what support would you need in going forward from the board and from the town in terms of resources or support?
So mainly the advertising and Mr. Manager, I assume that is something that you can set up on the town website.
We can publish it through all of our various channels soon. And if you have a draft that you want to send me, or if you want me to send you a draft, I can work either way. I do have a question when the time comes also.
John, do you have anything to say at this point to add?
I just was, well, I have we do a lot of work in town hall on this issue, and we're very excited to see this commission being formed to really provide some community-based with some leadership from the Board of Selectmen, and we're really excited to help out in any way that we can. I guess my question is, what's the expectation from David or from the board for staff support for this group? Because as you know, we do try to provide staff to all of our committees, and some committees have staff, some don't have as much as they'd like, and we are a little bit short-staffed right now. So I'm just trying to get a sense of your expectations.
Can we defer on that question, John? If we can find someone on the commission to do minutes and things like that, maybe we don't need staff support, but you know, can we make that assessment around the time of the first meeting?
Yes.
Okay. So, Jim?
Just I guess a question for John or for David, a comment really. I'd love to have the commission here early on about all the great efforts that John and the town staff have been doing with respect to these issues. I think it'll be a really nice jumpstart to understand the depth to which they've been trying to look at these issues, and might help with understanding what's next, what's missing, what needs to be done. So I guess that ends up being just a comment.
Yeah, that's great. I'll keep that in mind when the commission sets its schedule.
Okay, so just lastly, we're all clear in the charge on the 70% that immigrant residence includes all immigrant resident groups that are part of our great town.
That's
Joan?
completely clear
Yeah.
to me.
And Joan, you're good?
Yes.
Okay, we don't need to clarify it in here. Or that's probably going to complicate it.
Yeah.
We'd
Now,
have
let's
to-
leave it alone. We all know.
Yeah, I that is completely my intention. I
Mhm.
would not exclude any immigrant from any other country. As you know, they would be considered for being part of this commission.
Whether you've been an immigrant here 2 years or 15 years or 25 years. they're
Absolutely,
immigrants.
absolutely. And if there's a Russian Jewish person who came to town 25 years ago, that would be fine.
Okay. Okay, so well done. We have the charge. If David, if you would just send it out to us, and John will get it up on the website, and we'll move it right along. So thank
Okay.
you all, and do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, David, if you'd call the roll, please.
Mr. Snyder Grant,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
I,
Mr. Charter,
I'm just leaving the meeting here.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
and I also say aye, so we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aye.